When my son told me that I would not be welcome at his house for Christmas, I smiled, got in my car, and made one call. By the new year, I had their mortgage payments cancelled, and that was just the beginning of my plan. Justice must be restored and arrogance punished. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I could make my famous turkey this year, I said, settling deeper into Adrian's leather couch, the same one I'd surprised them with last spring. The one Serena swore would elevate the room. The sage stuffing your mother used to love. Remember how she'd always say it was better than her grandmother's? The words floated in the warm light of the 12-foot tree, mixing with the expensive scent of Serena's candles. Adrian shifted beside me. His ring caught the glow like a warning. Something in his posture folded inward, braced, preparing to be the villain in his own story. "Dad," he said finally, eyes sliding to the marble coffee table I'd helped him pick out. "You won't be welcome here for Christmas." The air thinned. For a second I thought I'd misheard. "What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be welcome?" He couldn't look at me. "Serena's parents are coming. They'd prefer if you weren't here." They'd prefer. The phrase knifed through me. "It's just easier this way, Dad. You know how her family is about traditions. They have their own way." I looked around their living room. 6 curtains I'd paid for when Serena worried about privacy. Oak floors funded by a second mortgage I took on my house. Crown molding that maxed out my card. Every inch of that space bore my fingerprints. Every inch whispered back at me, "Unpaid gratitude." "Their own way," I repeated. "And what way is that, Adrian?" "Dad, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." Through the corridor, I could see the stand mixer Serena had insisted she needed for her holiday baking era. $800 of my money for a phase that lasted 3 weeks. Where should I spend Christmas then? My voice came out softer than I intended. He winced. "Maybe visit Aunt Pilar? Or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. As if Christmas were a dentist appointment. I stood, feeling every one of the 62 years in my knees, past the family frames where my face grew smaller with each passing year, past the hall closet choking on Serena's coats, to the door where the brass knob was cold and solid, like a verdict. "Tell Serena's parents," I said without turning back. "Feliz Navidad." Outside, Fairview's December air slapped my cheeks. Behind me, Adrian called my name once, then the soft click of the door closed it all. Final. Absolute. I sat in my truck for a beat, staring at the lights winking in houses I'd never be welcome in. My phone buzzed, probably an apology, heavy on guilt and light on change. I didn't answer. I turned the key and drove into the dark, leaving behind the warm glow of a house I'd helped buy and would never belong in. At the red light on Alder and Grant, a young father loaded presents into an SUV. Little faces fogged the glass from inside, laughter bursting like fireworks. Once upon a time, that had been Adrian and me, before Serena, before I became a wallet with inconvenient feelings. Numbers began to tally in my head, like a slot machine stuck on loss. $2,950 every month for 6 years. My calculator had surrendered last spring when I finally tried to total it. $212,400. More than Maria and I had saved for our entire retirement. Gone. Just gone. I pressed the accelerator too hard when the light flipped green. The truck growled, old and honest. On Alder was the small branch of Columbia Trust where I'd signed the home equity loan to cover the down payment they couldn't manage. The loan officer had looked at me with pity I was too proud to read. "Mr. Reyes, you're putting a lot at risk for someone else's investment. Someone else's investment. Not my son's future, not my family, not what I told myself in the mirror. Someone else's." I turned onto Willow, the bank where I'd taken a second loan when Adrian lost his job 2 winters ago. "Just temporary, Dad, until I get back on my feet." Serena had stood behind him, a designer bag on her shoulder, nodding sympathetically, while her eyes measured exactly how much my desperation could buy her. I pulled into my driveway. Cracked concrete I hadn't fixed because every spare dollar had disappeared into their lifestyle. The porch light flickered again. Inside, the house felt hollow without Maria's laugh, without the warmth that used to meet me at the door like a sunbeam. My phone rang before I got my coat off. Serena. "Perfect," I let it go 4 rings. Syrup over steel. "Victor," she said, "I heard about the little misunderstanding with Adrian." "There's no misunderstanding," I said, leaning against my kitchen counter. "You made your position perfectly clear. You have to understand my parents' perspective," she went on. "They're very traditional. They expect a certain atmosphere for the holidays." "What atmosphere is that?" A rustle of shopping bags, the gentle clink of a bottle. "They're not used to your kind of cooking, all that spicy food and, well, the loudness. And, Victor, they're educated people, conversations about current events, literature, art. 8 years of biting my tongue for Adrian's sake, of pretending I didn't notice her looking at me like hired help." "My kind of cooking," I said. "You mean the food you ate every Sunday for 3 years when money was tight? The tamales, you said, reminded you of your grandmother? That was different," she said. "We were appreciative then, but with my parents there, with your parents there," I finished. "You can't have the peasant embarrassing you at your fancy table." "Don't be dramatic," she said. "This isn't about race. It's about class. My father graduated top of his class. My mother speaks 4 languages. They summer on Soundview. What exactly would you contribute to dinner? Stories about laying tile?" Heat burned my chest, but I didn't raise my voice. "I built a company from nothing after Maria died. I employed dozens. I've paid more in taxes than your father earned in his best year. Money isn't everything, Victor. Breeding matters. Education matters. And frankly, Maria understood her place better than you understand yours." Silence. Not the kind that begs, the kind that decides. "What did you say about my wife?" I asked, my hand squeezing the phone until my knuckles whitened. "I'm saying she blended. She didn't make waves. She understood some rooms aren't meant for everyone." "Maria," I said, each word flint on steel, "had more grace in her little finger than your bloodline has in its best generation." Serena laughed, lightly. "Please." She cleaned houses and got lucky. "This conversation is over," I said. "We're done performing family." "You can't just, we're done." I set the phone down carefully. The kitchen looked the same, but something had shifted, like a window cracked in a smoky room. I walked to the desk in the corner, pulled out the manila folder I'd been avoiding for months, and laid 6 years of my life on the table. Time to stop the bleeding. The documents spread across my kitchen like evidence at a crime scene. Every month, the same transfer. $2,950 on the 15th, disappearing into their mortgage at North Sound Bank. Year 1, $35,400. Year 2, another $35,400. By year 3, I stopped buying new clothes. Year 4, discount groceries. Year 5, peanut butter lunches. Year 6, counting coins in a jar. $212,400 in mortgage payments, not including the $45,000 down payment I'd swallowed through my home equity line when they found the perfect place. Not including the $21,000 for Serena's granite and gold kitchen. Not including $6,800 for the roof when their shingles curled like dead leaves. Not including the utilities, the emergency car repair, the essential nursery furniture for grandchildren I wasn't welcome to babysit. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. Maria's life insurance, my retirement, the fund we'd started for future little ones who existed only as a tender ache in our conversations. All of it gone into a house that didn't want me at Christmas. I picked up the phone and called Cascadia Credit Union. "Customer service, this is Janelle. How may I help you today?" "I need to cancel an automatic transfer," I said. It was the steadiest I'd sounded in years. She verified the details and paused. "I see a recurring transfer for $2,950 to North Sound Bank, ending in 8031. How long would you like the cancellation to last?" "Permanently." "Done," she said. "Anything else I can help you with?" "No," I said. And I meant it the way a man means I'm done digging the hole I'm standing in. In the fireplace, the edges of 6 years curled black and vanished. For the first time in half a decade, I could afford to fix my porch light, buy a decent roast, Maybe even take a weekend away to the coast like Maria and I always planned and never reached. My phone buzzed. Adrian or Serena, no doubt. I didn't check. I poured myself a glass from the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion that stubbornly refused to arrive. Tonight counted. I lifted it toward Maria's photo on the mantel. "Merry Christmas to me," I said, and I meant that too. The next morning, the sun came clean through the kitchen window. My second cup of coffee tasted like freedom. At exactly 10:47, my phone lit up. Serena. "Victor," she said, impatient now that the sugar had melted. "I need you to pick up my parents from Fairview International. Their flight from Portland lands at 2. Did you forget our conversation yesterday?" "Whatever that was about," she said, "we have practical matters to address. My parents need transportation, and you're the only one with time during the day." The audacity was a work of art. Less than 24 hours after she'd barred me from her table, she cast me as their chauffeur. "And you're asking me because? Because that's what family does." And let's be honest, you're not exactly my rival. You're too soft to be my rival. So get in your truck and go, what airline? NorthJet 447, baggage claim 4. And Victor, wear something decent. They notice these things. "Of course," I said gently. "I'll take care of everything." At 2:15, I settled into my armchair with a fresh cup of Earl Grey and the Sunday edition. The phone buzzed. Serena. I let it ring. The winter sun slanted across the rug, warm and unapologetic. At 2:47, a text preview. "Where are you? My parents are..." I flipped the screen face down and finished the sports page. At 3:30, I'd brewed a second pot of tea and organized the junk drawer. Amazing what you can accomplish when you're not sprinting to catch every plate someone else spins. At 3:45, an unknown number. I let that one ring too. Somewhere across town, 3 very important people were discovering that taxis exist. At 5, I washed my dinner dishes and debated a movie. The door shook under heavy fists, the kind of pounding that confuses rage for righteousness. I already knew who was on the other side. I opened it onto Harold Vale's red face. Behind him, Vivian's pearls quivered with fury. Serena trailed in their wake like a storm that spent itself on the wrong coast. "What's wrong with you?" Harold demanded, brushing past me into the living room. "We waited over 3 hours." "This is unacceptable," Vivian added. "From someone your age. Barbaric. You humiliated us," Serena hissed. $40 for a taxi because you decided to." "This is my house," I said softly, the blade in my words razor clean, "and I want you out." Vivian lifted her chin. "You clearly don't understand the magnitude of your mistake. My husband has connections, business, social. You can't treat people like us this way and expect no consequences." "This was a lesson," I said, meeting her gaze, "about your arrogance, about how you treat people you consider beneath you." "A lesson?" Serena barked a laugh. "You're nobody, Victor. A nobody with a truck and a martyr complex. I'm someone who finally stopped being your bank and your taxi," I said, and opened the door wide. "The lesson is over." Harold jabbed a finger at my chest, stopping short of contact. "You have no idea who you're crossing. I've been in this city longer than you've been breathing. People can make your life very, very difficult." "Is that a threat, Mr. Vale?" "It's a promise." They left like a defeated procession, but Harold pivoted in the doorway to add, "You'll regret this. I guarantee it." I turned the deadbolt with a click that sounded like a curtain closing. The house felt cleaner with them gone. Their parting words buzzed like a fly against glass. Public consequences, connections, important people. 3 days later, I met myself on page 2 of the Cascadia Chronicle. Fairview business owner abandons elderly couple at airport during holiday storm. There it was, an old headshot from my company website, stretched wide enough to make me look tired and mean. The article was by Paige Morrow, lifestyle editor. It described Harold and Vivian Vale, vulnerable seniors, left waiting in dangerous conditions, as a winter storm warning threatened the city. It had been 56 degrees and sunny. "We couldn't believe someone would abandon us," Harold said. "We called repeatedly, but Mr. Reyes never answered. We were forced to take a costly taxi in hazardous weather. At our age, this is more than inconsiderate. It's dangerous." The piece continued with unnamed sources wringing hands about my erratic behavior and financial strain. No mention of being banned from Christmas. No mention of the $212,400. Just me, the villain of a storm that never happened. I read it again, slower, then a third time. I didn't recognize Page's name, but I recognized the strategy. Harold had cashed in favors. In a town like Fairview, one well-placed whisper could become gospel by dinner. They declared war. I folded the paper and opened my laptop. If they wanted a public fight, they'd get one. I typed, Harold Vale, Vivian Vale, Serena Vale, Adrian Reyes. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Old gala photos, club newsletters, board rosters, charity pages. Their lives were an art gallery of curated superiority and a ledger of hypocrisy. Harold, retired bank executive, member of the Fairview Harbor Club, treasurer for the Cascadia Business Council. Influence stacked like bricks. Vivian, a mosaic of charity luncheons and vineyard tastings, each caption a pearl of self-congratulation. Serena, the reality behind the captions. Check-ins at restaurants on nights I covered their utilities. Kitchen tours filmed among appliances I'd bought. A status from last week. Excited. So excited to host Christmas. Can't wait to show off our holiday tablescape. Our table. Our home. Our success. Adrian's LinkedIn showed a fresh connection. Page Morrow. The Chronicle piece hadn't materialized out of thin air. It was placed, carefully, by people who thought careful was the same as clever. I opened a new document, not a reply to the smear, something better, a timeline. 6 years of transfers, highlighted and dated. Photographs of the new chandelier Serena needed. Receipts for the down payment, the kitchen, the roof. A printed copy of the article, annotated in red. 56 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny. Next to the word storm. No context. Next to the claims about my behavior. On Serena's Facebook events, I found it. A Christmas Eve dinner for 14. Friends, neighbors, club acquaintances, the kind of people who read the Chronicle and consider it scripture. 14 guests, 14 packets. December 24th. The perfect day for truth. The morning dawned gray, the kind of Fairview winter day that made you grateful for heat and honesty. I laid out the evidence like a lawyer. Bank statements by year, transfers highlighted, receipts chronologically arranged, photos printed, Serena's jewelry, their vacations, the lavish decorations I'd kept quietly funded. On top of each stack, the Chronicle article, my notes in the margins. I dressed in my best navy suit, the one I'd worn when we said goodbye to Maria. Today, I was burying something else. By 6:30, I parked a block away from their Craftsman Palace in Maple Ridge. Through the bay window, I saw Serena orchestrating the dinner like a conductor waving an orchestra I'd paid for. At 6:45, I walked up the path and turned the unlocked handle. Serena liked to brag about their safe neighborhood, how locks were a formality for other people. Their laughter drifted down the hall like a dare. And then Vivian said, "We don't do it that way in our family," someone tittered. I stepped into the dining room with my briefcase. 14 faces turned. Serena froze, a wine glass suspended midair. Adrian's face drained of color. Harold and Vivian looked like they'd seen a ghost and realized the ghost could talk. "Good evening," I said, placing the briefcase on their sideboard. "I hope you don't mind if I join you." "Victor," Serena said, "this is inappropriate. Leave. Now." "First," I said, opening the case, "I think your guests deserve to know who paid for this dinner, this house, this performance." I circled the table, laying a packet before each guest. "Here you go. 6 years of transfers, $212,400 in mortgage payments, $45,000 for the down payment, $21,000 for the kitchen, $6,800 for the roof, and assorted emergencies. All yours. The only sound was paper, the slow turning of pages. A man with silver hair stopped mid-breath. A woman in velvet drew back as if the numbers could bite. "It's more complicated than it looks," Serena said. "Victor volunteered. We never asked." "Let's talk about what you did ask for," I said, setting copies of the Chronicle article on the table. "And what you told the media about me." Recognition crackled across their faces as they saw my photo in print. "Mr. Vale here," I said, "used his connections to plant a story. In it, I'm unhinged, dangerous, a man who abandons vulnerable seniors in a blizzard." "It was extremely cold," Vivian began. "It was 56 degrees, I said, and you weren't stranded tourists. You were guests arriving for a Christmas dinner I was banned from, because I wasn't good enough for your company." "Now let's not," Harold started. I slid my phone across the table, screen lit with Serena's posts. "Too low class, right? My food too loud? My conversation too working class? That's what was said, wasn't it?" Velvet whispered to pearls. Someone coughs. A friend. "Harold," he said carefully, "this looks very bad. Financial stress can cause." Harold tried. "Financial stress," I laughed once. "I've been supporting your daughter and your son-in-law to the tune of nearly $3,000 a month for 6 years. The only financial crisis in this room is the one waiting for you." Adrian found his voice. "Dad, I didn't know about the article." "Your wife knew," I said. "Her parents orchestrated it." The air shifted. Guests looked at one another with that particular expression reserved for realizing you've been clapping for the wrong person. "This is grotesque," said an elderly woman in pearls, staring at the statements. "Harold, how could you let your daughter take advantage of this man's generosity and then attempt to ruin him publicly?" "Everyone," Serena said, hands up. "This is a family matter." "It stopped being a family matter," I said, "when you made it public. When you decided my reputation was collateral damage for your pride." I closed the briefcase and smoothed my jacket. "Enjoy your dinner," I said. "It's the last one I'll be paying for." I was halfway down the hall when the room erupted behind me. Accusations cracking like ice. Someone's fork scraping china like a scream. A man demanding, "Is this true?" It was the most beautiful Christmas music I'd ever heard. The air shifted. Guests looked at one another with that particular expression reserved for realizing you've been clapping for the wrong person. "This is grotesque," said an elderly woman in pearls, staring at the statements. "Harold, how could you let your daughter take advantage of this man's generosity and then attempt to ruin him publicly?" "Everyone," Serena said, hands up. "This is a family matter. It stopped being a family matter," I said, "when you made it public, when you decided my reputation was collateral damage for your pride." I closed the briefcase and smoothed my jacket. "Enjoy your dinner," I said. "It's the last one I'll be paying for." I was halfway down the hall when the room erupted behind me. Accusations cracking like ice, someone's fork scraping china like a scream, a man demanding, "Is this true?" It was the most beautiful Christmas music I'd ever heard. He sat on the edge of the couch, hovering like a man afraid to make anything heavier. "I'm sorry," he said. "For Christmas, for the article, for the way Serena, the way I treated you. I didn't know about the Chronicle piece," he added quickly. "When I found out, Dad, the things they said about you behind your back, about our family, about Mom, what did they say about Maria? That she knew her place better than you know yours. That she understood boundaries. You should have defended her," I said. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't need to. "You should have defended me." He nodded, eyes on the floor. "I should have. We let the quiet fill the room the way fog fills a valley." "The house is in foreclosure," he said finally. "I know. We can't make the payments without—" He stopped himself. "Without my money," I finished. "Do you know how much I sent you in 6 years?" Serena totaled it after Christmas. The mortgage, the down payment, the extras. Over 200,000. 279,200, I said. "I know the exact number because I finally did something I should have done years ago. I added it up." He swallowed. Dad, I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix the past, son. The money's gone. More importantly, the years are gone. Years I could have spent being your father instead of your banker. Maybe we can start over, he said. Maybe there's a way to— Are you asking me to resume the mortgage? The hope leaked out of his eyes. We're going to lose everything, he whispered. The house. Serena's respect. Her parents' approval. You'll figure it out, I said, not unkindly. The way I figured out how to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who thought I was beneath them. He cried then. Not the loud kind. The quiet, draining kind that means a man is meeting himself for the first time. I lost you, he said. I chose them over you. And I lost you. You didn't lose me, Adrian, I said. You gave me away. There's a difference. Is there any chance you could forgive me? I forgave you months ago, I said. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It doesn't mean I go back to paying for a lifestyle where I'm not welcome. Then what does it mean? I walked to the mantel, to the photo of Maria beside a new one of me at Pilar's Easter table, grinning with kids who wanted me at their science fair. It means, if you want a relationship with me, you'll build it from scratch. You'll show me respect instead of asking me to earn my place at your table. And the next time someone tries to exclude me from family, you'll remember who acts like family. He nodded slowly. The shape of a new life forming in the air between us. The house? He asked. Isn't my problem, I said. You're a grown man. Get a job that covers your bills. Sell and buy something you can afford. Stop living beyond your means and expecting others to subsidize your choices. At the door he turned. For what it's worth, he said. Seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas. I was proud of you. I was angry, embarrassed, but proud. Good, I said. Maybe there's hope for you yet. After he left, I poured a small glass and stepped onto the back porch. Spring in Fairview smelled like wet cedar and second chances. Maria had been gone 8 years. I had spent 6 of those as a doormat. That part of my life ended on Christmas Eve. My phone buzzed. Pilar, dinner Sunday? Kids want to show you their projects. Wouldn't miss it, I typed. Real family, it turned out, was made of the people who wanted you there. Everything else was expensive theater. I was done buying tickets to shows where I wasn't welcome on stage. Word travels in towns like ours, even when you don't carry it. The Chronicle ran a follow-up 2 weeks later, a small piece tucked near the classifieds. Correction. No weather advisory was issued on the date previously reported. No apology, just a correction that would be cut off on most screens. The Harbor Club, not mine to lose or miss, quietly rotated Harold off a committee. At charity luncheons, Vivian's stories landed with soft thuds instead of applause. People who built their lives on mirrors know when the room changes. They can feel it when admiration slips into politeness, the kind of politeness that freezes instead of warms. A neighbor of theirs, a woman who'd once pretended I was invisible, stopped me outside the grocer. I read some things, she said, too brightly. I'm so sorry about the misunderstanding. Which one? I asked. She blinked. Well, all of it, I suppose. Thank you, I said, and meant the part that mattered, that she had to say it. At home, I started cooking real food again. Ropa vieja on Tuesdays, pozole on Sundays. I sat at my table and ate with the window cracked, listening to the distant hum of a city swallowing its gossip, and trying to replace it with something like truth. I didn't wait for an apology that wasn't coming. I didn't need one to move forward. I only needed the quiet inside my own head to stop sounding like a ledger I couldn't balance. Adrian called now and then, not to ask for money, to tell me about job interviews, then a new position, then a cheaper rental after they sold the house before the bank took it. Serena didn't call. That was a gift I didn't return. He began to show up on Sunday evenings. We watched old movies, Maria's favorites, and I let him tell stories about work, about learning to make do, about discovering the difference between a house and a home. We didn't talk much about the past. We didn't need to. It was there in the spaces we left for each other. Once, on a warm night in July, he asked if I would ever consider spending Christmas together again. Maybe, I said, if the invitation is to your table, not to your life the way someone else wants it to look. He nodded. It would be at my table. Then maybe, I repeated. When he left that night, he stood on the porch a long moment. I'm sorry I made you choose, he said. I didn't choose, I said. You did. I held the door you closed. He nodded again, and I saw the boy who used to run down the hall with a blanket cape. The one who believed I could fix anything with a laugh and a sandwich. I couldn't fix everything, but I could fix myself. Sometimes that's enough to make a life. If you are expecting handcuffs and headlines, you'll be disappointed. That's not how real life works most of the time. The reckoning is quieter, and it cuts deeper. It's a father who stops funding a lie. It's a son who learns what respect costs when it's no longer paid for him. It's a woman who discovers a dinner party isn't a kingdom, and guests aren't a crown. It's a city that reads a correction smaller than the original lie and pretends it's the same size in the heart. The best part of the story isn't the dinner, or the article, or even the letter in March. The best part is the morning I woke up and realized I was free. Free to spend my money on my life. Free to say no without a speech. Free to make pozole and invite who I wanted, to eat, to laugh, to let the window stand open, even when winter snuck its nose inside to sniff. If you've been listening this far, I'll tell you what I learned on a cold December night outside a warm house that didn't want me. Sometimes the most generous thing you can do for people who use you is to stop letting them. That's the reckoning. The rest is noise. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. Tell us where you're listening from, and when you're ready for another tale where karma keeps its receipts, click the next story on the right.